every single moment is a divine moment that is leading you closer to the person that you're wanting to be.
Fulfillment isn't something you find, it's something that you connect to, and you connect to through a way of thinking and a way of being. And I liken it to a purpose-led life. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Anniston, and this is Empowered Life.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. It is Rudi and Anniston Ricksteins, and we are bringing to you the sixth episode in a six-part series that we've brought onto the Empowered Life platform, because we're talking about bringing consciousness into business. You know, every single person on the planet at some point in time spends the majority of their life going into work and spending a tremendous amount of time at work. And we want to impact people where they spend the most time. And if we can create a shift in a perspective, a shift in a way of being, a shift in how you show up, you carry the power and the potential to create a profound shift around everyone. I know that we've done 6 episodes. We're rounding out one of our favorite topics for this, but we probably could have done 26, 46, 56 episodes, and to narrow them down to just 6 was so hard. But today's episode is one that we're really eager and excited for you to hear.
It's probably the topic I'm most excited to talk about. I feel really connected to this specific topic. So I'm happy that we left it for last, because I think we've built a really good foundation. So if you haven't gone back and listened to the first 5 in this series, I do urge you to do that, because as Rudi often says, we like to stack and introduce one topic, which then feeds into the next topic and the next. And, you know, I think this specific tool or practice that we're going to be talking about today is incredibly relevant. And, you know, a couple of years ago, when COVID happened and the world shut down and everyone's life really somewhat came to a halt, not completely, but I don't think there's a person on the planet who didn't experience some kind of shift or change in their schedule. But more than that, at the same time, everyone got blindfolds to put on, is what it felt like. They kept using the words like, this is unprecedented. This is the great unknown. We don't know what this is going to look like. And all of a sudden, everyone had this golden opportunity to really stop, get quiet, get still, and really think about, like, what do I want? Is this what I want? Do I like where I live? Do I like where I work? Am I happy with my life? Am I happy with my marriage? And, you know, we saw statistically some really interesting things happening. You know, I think the rate of divorces went up significantly. I also think that, you know, a lot of people, the rate of therapy went up significantly. People started realizing, whoa, I need help here. We also saw things like the big Great Resignation. And this was like this sweeping wave of millions of people who were deciding to leave their jobs, to leave corporate America, to start their own businesses, start their own side hustle, but also just to find something new, because they realize, you know what, I don't really like this. And now that I've had the chance to really to stop and think about it, I want to make a change. And this job I'm not happy with, and I'm sure it's the job's fault, or it's my boss's fault, or it's my paycheck's fault. So I'm going to go find another job so I can be happier. And what's interesting is that a lot of those people, I would imagine, went and found another job. And maybe in the beginning, they would have been okay, happy, you know, like, okay, this is new, this is different. Maybe I'm making more money, so I feel happier, or I'm challenged in new ways. But as the routine would set in and the newness would become normal, you would find, I mean, I'm sure that they have, that those same feelings of, I'm not fulfilled, this doesn't seem to be enough, there's this gaping hole inside of me, still remain. And that is because what they are seeking is not going to come in a job title. What they're seeking is fulfillment, but only for the fulfillment that can be found by aligning with your purpose.
You know, you brought up COVID, and so many emotions come up from that entire period. And Anniston and I talk all the time about, I would actually say it's more of a way of being than a way of conversating, but we believe that everything is always serving us. Every single moment is happening to take us to where we need to go. I can look at my life, and every single moment, from abuse to being held up at gunpoint to moving to meeting my wife, to speaking on stage, to the jobs that I've had, every single one has added another layer that has prepared me for who I get to be next. And that's the beauty and the divinity of every single, what we like to say, seemingly insignificant moment is really just this incredible unfolding. What I love so much about COVID, and never taking away from all of the pain and the anguish of what so many people went through, it was that opportunity that forced the entire world. There wasn't a person that wasn't touched by COVID. And never before in, I would argue, the history of our known time, have we ever been forced to go so introspective. There have been wars that have been world wars. There have been wars in territories, but it didn't impact every single person. And there were people that were left out of the fold, if you will. But COVID was a moment that really made everybody stop in their tracks. And having supported so many individuals and then so many organizations coming out of COVID, the recurring theme that I hear so often is people say, I was living a life before COVID. I was caught up in this rat race. I was doing this thing. I had dreams, I had goals, I had aspirations. And then I just kind of would say, I will get to it. I will touch on that at some point in time. I'm gonna do that thing. Some people just said, well, it's not in the cards for me, and this is where I am. When Anniston and I, and we've shared this so many times on our platforms, when we realized COVID was going to create a profound impact in our lives, we had a momentary holy crap moment where we sat on the couch and we went into a state of panic. And then we started doing what we do, and that was, let's introduce new information. Let's ask better questions to get better information. And we sat there and said, what do we have now that we didn't have before COVID? And Anniston started laughing, and I still remember thinking, what the hell is there to laugh about? And she was like, man, we have time. We have so much time. And with that time, we decided, let's start pouring into our passion projects. What were those things we always wanted to do? And I think that was the greatest gift that came out of COVID, because so many people were forced into going inward and saying, as you beautifully said a moment ago, do I even like who I'm married to? Do I like where I live? Do I like what I do? And people then started to have the potential to create shifts. Now, unfortunately, so many people, they just picked a different job, a different spouse, a different home, and their life carried on, and they're back in that rat race. But for so many other people, they're doing what they were born to do.
It was a really interesting time, I think, for everybody. And I'm sure you could probably relate to that and the clarity that you might have gained during that time. But what came out of it for us really, and this is a good example, is, in that moment when we sat there and asked the questions, we were looking for meaning, right? When you can find a meaning behind something and you can find a purpose and why something is happening for you, and you can start to look at the world as, life is happening for me, not to me. So if it is happening for me, what is it? What do I stand to gain here? And through that one simple conversation where we identified, wow, what we stand to gain is time. And what have we always said we needed more of? Time, because there was a lot that we had wanted to do that was aligned with what we would say our purpose is, which is to teach, to heal, to transform. And we do that through the vehicle of coaching. I do that through the vehicle of being a vice president of an organization and being able to impact people every day and clients. And, I think that being able to, in any given moment, especially when you're scared, especially when you don't know what's going on, or especially when you find yourself all of a sudden with that sitting with that feeling of something felt right and now it doesn't feel right anymore. And I always say, something's right until it isn't right anymore, because your purpose is an ever-evolving target, just like you are an ever-evolving being. And I believe we're drawn to certain situations, whether it be relationships, experiences, jobs, to learn, to gain skills, to gain confidence, to build relationships with important people in your life, to learn from other people. I mean, there's so many reasons why we are where we are. But when we start questioning that and saying, I don't think there's a reason for me to be here anymore, this is a waste of my time, this is a mistake, that's when things can start to go from bad to worse, and very, very quickly. Because when you start to believe that and you start to feel that way, and then when you start showing up to work that way, you're certainly not going to be bringing your best self to work.
So let's jump into the meat of today's episode. And that is really about tapping into, bringing awareness to your purpose. And if you could bring your purpose into every area of your life, or at least where you spend the bulk of your time, this is where I think people become the happiest, where they become the most fulfilled, where they light up. They step out of the states of being in fear, fight, or flight, or stress, and they start tapping into creativity, inspiration. You fall into the feeling of flow, and that's when life becomes truly magical. And so many people believe that if they're unhappy, it's where they're at that's making them unhappy. And we say it's the vantage point of where you're at. It's not where you're at. And you can create happiness right there where you are. Now, I'm not saying if you're in a toxic job environment, you should stay there, or if you're in a toxic marriage, you should stay there. That's your choice and your choice alone. What I'm getting at is that if in your day, if in your life, if in your relationships, you can assign value and meaning to that moment, or you could shift your perspective, or you could start questioning and asking, how is this moment preparing me for the person I want to become? Where is this to my dreams, to my goals, to my aspirations? And how am I being qualified to become who I've come here to be? And then start bringing those things into your everyday. One of the biggest tools that I will bring into a business when I'm serving, whether it's an executive or an entire executive team, is what is like your thing that you love? What do you love to do? And then we find ways to bring that thing they love into their job, even if it has nothing to do with their function.
So your purpose, and I would say the most fundamental definition of what that is, it's your passion. It's something that you're really excited about, that lights you up, something that you're good at, something that you're naturally good at when shared with others. So your purpose is your passion when shared with others. And I think that there's something that innately, when you start getting into a place of giving and you start focusing on, okay, maybe everything in my life isn't perfect right now, or maybe this isn't my dream job, and I'm finding myself feeling discontent and dissatisfied and a little bit stuck. How do I get unstuck? A really quick way to do that is to start honing in on, okay, what can I do right now that lights me up, that gives me joy? Even if it's not a part of my job function, it has nothing to do with my job. What is that? Is it art? Is it baking? Is it, reading? Is it writing? Is it creating music? What is that thing? And start doing that. Start spending time doing that outside of work. And, I would challenge you inside of work. We have found that when people start to have open conversations about what they're so good at, their superpowers, if you will, and start sharing it with other people, that you find not only other people that you have a lot in common with, but that people are interested and then they want what you have to give. We know someone, for instance, who is an unbelievable baker, and she will bake cookies, these unbelievable cookies, and she brings them to all the company events and she boxes them beautifully and she gifts them to people, and it lights her up. You can tell she just loves to see everyone opening up those boxes and eating her cookies. It has nothing to do with her job function. Now that interest has now turned into a bit of a side business for her, and she makes really good money selling those on the internet now, but it really started with her just wanting to share a passion of hers. But again, your passion when shared is a part of your purpose. So that is a part of what she's here to do.
I talk a lot about brain coherence, and when we hear the word, people tune out right away because that sounds so confusing. And so let's really just talk about the benefit of you being you more often. When you are in your job and you're bored or you're frustrated or you're anxious or you're resentful or you're overworked, you're tired, well, in those states, your body starts to produce feelings of overwhelm and feelings of frustration and resent, and it starts to compound. And then you filter all of the information around you through that vantage point, which diminishes what you have the ability to draw in. I will have calls with executives where they say, I'm dealing with a problem. Here's the problem I have, and I just cannot find the solution. And when listening to them communicate, they're speaking erratically. They're speaking out of heightened emotion. They're speaking under pressure, under stress. And, if I don't get this forward, then I don't know what I'm going to do. And I've challenged people, what's your thing? And sometimes, Anson mentioned it's painting. So many people, it's art. Some people, it's gym. Some people, it's going for a run or for a walk. And so I had a call with an executive not long ago. It was probably about 6 months ago. And the reason I'm using this particular one is this gentleman would start work at 5 o'clock in the morning. He would have his team send him messages at 6:30 in the morning based on performances so they could prepare for a call that everybody had to be on at 8 a.m. And then he would work and finish his workday at around about 10, 11 o'clock at night, dinner and so on in between. But he would always be at his laptop at night, firing off emails. And if he didn't get a response back from somebody at his team at 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night, then that meant they weren't committed. It meant they weren't showing up. They weren't working. And what does that mean to him? What does that feel like in his body? What does it feel like to work for him, for the team? There was so much disconnect in that entire department because people felt like they weren't trusted. They were constantly being made to be available. They never had downtime. They never got to check out. It was all about work, and it was overwhelming for everyone. And he called me at 10:30 in the morning, and he was like, we have this problem. This is what's going on. And I said, I want you to go to the gym. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I want you to go to the gym. I want you right now, stand up, leave your desk, and I want you to go to the gym. And I want you to go work out. Take an hour, turn your phone off. And when you leave the gym, I want you to phone me. And he was like, there's no way on earth I'm going to do that. I couldn't do that. And I was like, I really need you to do that right now. Trust me. It is 100% okay. It is 100% safe. I'm going to go to your boss and I'm going to tell them I've told you to go to the gym and it's okay. And he did. He went to the gym. And halfway through the gym session, he didn't even make it the full hour. He called me and he said, Rudi, I have the answer. I have the answer. He's like, it's so clear. It just landed on me and I wanted to share it with you. And the reason I share this is because the moment he went and took himself out of a heightened, stressful environment where he couldn't find the solution, his brain was firing erratic thoughts. He was out of a state of, coherence where the left and right brain weren't working. He didn't have the ability to have reason, ration. Nothing was firing. No inspiration, no intuition. He was panicking. And all I did was said, go do something different. And the minute he went to the treadmill, he did a 10-minute warm up. He started doing bench press. He was doing something. And then in that moment, boom, it landed. And that's because he stopped being stressed. He stopped being panicked. He created left and right brain coherence. In that moment, he connected to something. And the answer was so simple. It was really right there in front of him. He just didn't have the ability or the faculties to tap into it at that time.
One of my absolute favorite interview questions to ask when I'm interviewing a potential candidate for the company I work for is, what is your superpower? What do you love doing? What do you love to do that lights you up? And this is one of the most important questions I ask because it's going to inform so much about this individual and where they might be a good fit in the organization. Because when you can have someone in a role that lends itself to their natural talents and abilities, but more than that, lends itself to something that they actually enjoy doing, then the likelihood of that person not only sticking around longer, but being happy and engaged and succeeding in this role is unbelievable compared to just looking at somebody's resume and what experience they've had and assuming, okay, well, then we have to find a like position to this. You're missing the most important information there. Because you can put someone into a role of something that they know how to do. Doesn't mean that they're passionate about it. Doesn't mean that they like it. Doesn't mean that it lights them up. And that automatically means that you've got a ticking time clock on this individual. Because eventually at some point, they're going to start looking around. They're going to start being like, this isn't filling me up. This isn't making me happy. So on that note about not filling me up, making me happy, this is an inside job. If you are listening to this, and whether you are an employee, you're a manager, you own your own company, and you are feeling unfulfilled, unsatisfied, as easy and as attractive as it sounds to look outside of yourself and point at all the reasons why, the reason starts in here. Fulfillment isn't something you find, it's something that you connect to, and you connect to through a way of thinking and a way of being. And I liken it to a purpose-led life, which means that you stop seeking outside of yourself for something else that is going to make you happy. And you really tune into, what do I need? Who do I want to be? What qualities do I want to be expressing? What do I feel like my unique purpose is? And how can I start being that right now, right where I am? If you are waiting to start, you will be waiting the rest of your life, because something magical happens when you can really connect to even if you don't know exactly what it is you think your purpose is, or what you feel drawn to, or what you feel that lights you up, if you can just get a little closer to that and say, well, I do kind of have fun when I do this, or I seem to lose time when I'm, writing for my blog, or whatever that quality is, something that no one has to pay you to do, something that you just legitimately like to do. It's not a should, it's a want to. If you can start doing those things, you're going to start to feel better. You're going to start to have less stress. You're going to start to open yourself as Rudi says, to having that coherence between your heart, your heart is really what governs your purpose, and your mind and your brain. And they're going to start working together, and you're going to start getting intuitive ideas of, oh, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should do this. And then one thing leads to the next. And before you know it, what you're here to do finds you. It's not something you have to chase. It's a way of being. And that, I think, is the biggest point of confusion as it relates to purpose, that it's a thing, it's a title. No, it's a way of being.
So you've spoken about the value and the importance of finding that thing, or paying attention to this lights me up, or I lose time and space, meaning I just get caught up in something. I don't realize how much time has passed. How do you bring that into your job?
Good question. Okay, so I'm going to use myself as an example. I am a multi-passionate person, and I have designed my life. I have reverse engineered my life to be a reflection of the things that light me up. Okay, so I've already told you, I'm a vice president of an organization, and it's a job that I absolutely love in a way that I've never really loved a job before. And 100% that's because of the way that I show up and I bring it into work. It's also the way I started this job. In my interview for this job, I was speaking to the company president, and he was, saying, well, what is it that you're looking for? And I said, honestly, I really want to impact people. That's what I'm passionate about. And that is the most important thing to me. And he said, well, I want you to impact people. I want you to bring everything that you love about coaching and about your, what you're doing with your writing, what you're doing with your podcast, bring it all here and help our people as well. Bring that into your job. And I was so inspired by that, because it was the first time I think I'd ever actually really given myself permission to fully show up. And in addition to, let's say, having a call with a client, I go into that call with the intention of, how can I impact and leave this space, these people on this call better than when I found them? How can I inspire them? How can I support them? How can I make them feel loved? That's exactly the same thing I would do before getting on with a coaching client, right? So what's the difference?
I want to interject here for a second, because I think there's so much value in adding context to the story. So Anniston and I had our own business at the time, and what is essentially my business now and what I do, but we were doing it together every single day, and we were doing very, very well. And our business was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and momentum was growing and growing and growing. And then she got this job offer, and it came out of nowhere. And it was through someone that we had known in a previous industry. And they were like, we really want to hire you. And Anniston came to me and said, I'm gonna get on the call with them, because we believe that anytime something comes to you and you didn't look for it, there's value in it. It doesn't mean you always have to do it, but there's information there. And so she said, I'm going to get on the call, and I'm just going to have an introductory call. So she had an introductory call, hung up from the call, came to me, and I was like, how did it go? And she said, oh, it's great. I love what they're doing. I love the energy, but it's not for me. Like, we've got something going. And we just kept going. And then the opportunity came back again. And a few weeks later, it was now, let's talk to the owner of the company. And I said to Anniston, why are you going to get on the call? I mean, you've already determined it's not for you. And she's like, no, again, opportunities coming. I want to hear them out and let's see what they have to say. And she spent an hour with this gentleman. And when she walked out of the office, I already could tell, like, that look on her face. I was like, what the F? She walked out and she was like, babe, I want to work for them. And I was like, what? It was so foreign to me in that moment, because I was like, I don't understand. We've got our own business. We're doing well. This is everything we've ever wanted. She sat down and she said, man, am I committed to going into this business? Because, they saw her for who she is. They said, we want you. And I want you to really hear what I just said, because Anniston touched on it, but she went over it so fast, I don't want you to miss it. The company said, we want you to bring your passion for coaching people into your job function. We want you to bring your passion for what you do in your podcast. We want you to bring it into work. She said, I want to impact people. I want to do training. And they said, we want you to do trainings. She wasn't hired for any of those reasons, meaning that's not her job function. She has an operational job function. And yet they said, we want all of that. And she brought all of that into the business and has profoundly impacted a massive company doing it. And I think so many people think that you have passion and then you have function, you have your job function. And there are two completely different things. And so I want everybody to make sure that as they hear, as Anniston talks about bringing your passions and your purpose and your superpowers into what you do every single day, and how do you, and this is so powerful, reverse engineer the life you want to live, so that when you're making decisions about your life, they're going in the direction of where you ultimately want to go. But I want you to have that lens. I want you to have that vantage point as you hear this information, so you can apply it to your life.
I remember a few weeks prior to getting that call, I had said a prayer. And this prayer was just, after a meditation. And I just said, I would really like to impact more people. And at that, as Rudi said, our coaching business was growing and it was growing in a beautiful way. But I just said, give me more people. I want more people to impact. Like, I'm loving doing this. What I didn't expect was that my answered prayer was going to come disguised as a job. And what did I get? I got more people, thousands of people to impact every single day. Beautiful, unbelievable humans that I get to work with all the time, and more come every single week as this company is expanding and exploding in the most exciting way. And I never would have thought or imagined that I would still be, now 3 years later, as happy and fulfilled as I was the day I started. But it was such a lesson for me because, I know many of you listening might have a dream or desire to coach or to do something that like similar to what Rudi and I are doing, to impact people, to start your own business, whatever that may be. But maybe you find yourself in a business right now. Well, look around you. Look at all the people around you. Is it possible that you are where you are because you're meant to be impacting them? That you could start right now, right where you are? And if you could start, which you can now, then what happens when one conversation leads to the next? And maybe an opportunity opens up for you to host a group within your business. Maybe an opportunity opens up for you to speak at your business's conference. You just never know where it's going to lead. But I can tell you what will happen if you don't start. Nothing. And if what you're waiting for is all the stars to align and for you to have a whole business set up outside, and then you leave your job and then you start coaching, and then you have to start being who you're meant to be, which means being your authentic self, which means being willing to be honest about who you are wherever you are. And that includes in your business. But man, when people start to show up authentically and to share, this is what lights me up. This is what I'm really good at. This is how I like to give back. And then start actually doing that. They shine. And they shine in a way that is impossible to do otherwise, because all of a sudden, I believe when you align with your authentic self, you naturally align with your purpose. That's the key. It's just being authentic to who you are. All of those little quirks, those little desires that you have that you think are a little off base or a little weird or maybe not important, or those gifts that you have that you don't think are valuable, they are given to you for a reason, and they were given to you so you can give them away. That's how we glorify all those gifts we've been given, is to give them away. And when you start doing that, miracles start to happen. Opportunities open up. That's when you enact, I think, the law of synchronicity. And then before you know it, a path will appear for you. And maybe you will wind up leaving the business that you're in, or maybe you will wind up leaving the company that you started now and go back into a business. You never know. But just because something doesn't look like what you expect it to, don't discount it. You have to trust how you feel. And you have to take accountability for how you feel. And the best thing that you can do if you are finding that you're not feeling good about where you are is to start to shift that now. Find ways to shift that now. Find meaning in what you're doing. And when you can find that meaning, and then you can start looking for all the things you're grateful for about where you are, you're going to start to shift that energy of the situation. And it's actually through being really grateful for where you are and being in a really heightened energy that you actually attract new opportunities. I think so often we think, well, we have to really hate where we are and really hate it in order to get to leave it. Do you agree with that?
I think that we're conditioned that when you are in an environment and it's mostly okay, that you should be happy where you are. And people often say, well, you have everything, you should really just be very happy, or you have a great job, or you have a nice bonus, or you have a good boss. This is as good as it's going to get. And I think that is just a notion of people who are fearful in themselves, and then they are expressing their fear for the uncertainty. And so they say, stay small, don't stretch outside your comfort zone. I remember, and we've spoken about this, me taking a new job working in the organization where Anniston was working. And I said, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it as Rudi. And then getting that email where my new boss had said, I need you to stop being you. You're too motivational. You're too inspiring. This is about numbers. And having that challenging moment of saying, I showed up as me and I got reprimanded for it. And now I have a choice to make. Do I stay here, play small, Do I run, or do I ask myself, what's the value in the meaning in this moment? And assigning the purpose for why you're there. We started this podcast dropping so many universal spiritual truths that I want you to go back and re-listen to it. Every single moment is a divine moment that is leading you closer to the person that you're wanting to be. If you talk about your end nirvana, what does your life look like if you achieve your highest and your greatest potential, and you are the happiest and the most fulfilled you could ever be? What are the things that need to happen in order to get there? And then if you were looking at everything that happened up to that point of where you are right now as a curriculum, as learning, as value, as adding meaning, so giving you additional context or clarity around who you're going to be, even if you don't like it in that moment, it's all preparing you. And if it's preparing you and you pause for a moment and look around you in your life, in your job, in your marriage, and you say, what am I learning now? And if I could change something, which I can, what would I want to change so that I could change, for the better, meaning my thoughts or my feelings about where I am, or maybe it is just simply where I am, but not recreating the same somewhere else, creating that change. And for me in that company, being told, I need you to stop being you, that was like a moment. It was a defining moment. I think that's where Rudi came out of the closet, so to speak. That's where Rudi said, you know what, screw you, man. I'm going to be the most inspiring person I can be. I'm going to be the most loving and kind and compassionate person I can be, even if that means I lose my massive job with my big bonus and all the title and it's embarrassing. I'm going to be me. And the most beautiful thing happened is that I started being recognized for being me. I started being celebrated for being me. That boss was eventually moved out. And, it happened in the most incredible way that I had nothing to do with it. And my life became very fruitful and it has continued to expand. I believe if I hadn't made that decision to be me, to bring my passions and my purpose of who I am into my job function, I would still have a job today. I would still be working. My impact would be small. And today I'm able to impact thousands and then eventually millions. And then my goal is billions of people, because I too have reverse engineered, what do I want my life to look like? And what am I doing now that's going to take me closer to what that looks like? It is one of the most powerful things that we can do. Value and meaning in your goal, in your journey, in your life, and then reverse engineer it for where you want to go.
Another way of reframing that really helped me was this idea that, I'm no longer going to allow myself to be defined by a job title, right? I know that what I'm meant to do is much bigger than probably I can even fathom. I'm admitting to the fact that I have no idea what the future will look like. And surely, of course, Rudi and I are really big into manifesting, and we always have our goals, but we leave a lot of openness for interpretation there in terms of from the universe, in terms of how that's going to look. One thing that's really supported me in this idea is that at any given point, I have an investor or multiple investors in my purpose. So right now I work for a corporation, and yes, I get a paycheck. This corporation is an investor in my dreams and my desires, just as I am an investor in theirs. I'm investing with my time, my energy, my skills. And I think when you start to look at it that way, and you can look at life that way, that at any given point, your investors will potentially shift and change based on what you need and what's really beneficial for you in the moment and what works for you in terms of a partnership. And not to hold too tightly to one over another, and allow some to come and to go, just as jobs need to come and to go, but that there will always be more investors in your dream. Another idea I think that has really helped me as well is this idea that, how I feel is my responsibility. And if I'm unhappy in a job, it's not the job's fault. It never was fair to put that on a job, because a job was never meant to fill a cup that was only meant to be filled by one thing. So when I do find myself in that place, my first question is, what is it that I really need right now? And oftentimes it could be maybe a season where, it's been really hectic, at work, and we're working on some big projects, and I haven't been spending time doing the things that are really creatively light me up, like writing or recording these podcast episodes with Rudi, or, playing with my kids, whatever that may be. And if I can just shift into prioritizing those things again every single day, I start to feel better almost immediately. I think too often we point the finger at the wrong thing, and the thing that, even if it was to shift and change, would still not make us feel better. But you have to always be checking in with yourself and know that It's your responsibility, nobody else's, not your partner's, not your children, not your boss's responsibility to make sure that you always feel happy and fulfilled. That is an inside game.
So I have a question, and you've touched on something, and we've mentioned it twice in the episode today about reverse engineering your life.
Yes.
And I think there are going to be people that are going to hear this and think, wow, I've never really thought about reverse engineering my life. I know I have a goal and I'm working towards it, but that's more like getting behind the 8 ball and pushing it. Whereas you're saying, go to the end, have a vision and pull it forward. Speak into a little bit of that so that people can really understand what does that mean and how does that dictate their life?
So for me, I know that what I love the most and what fills me up the most is spending time with Rudi and the kids. It is working as part of a team. It is working towards a common goal. Like all of that I love. I love writing. I love podcasting, any form of communication that is inspiring. I also love to consume inspiring information that really fills me up. And so when I look at the plate that I have to fill, of all the things that I do that fills my time, that fills my energy and takes my attention, really, truly, the only things on this plate are the things that fill me up. I have done a really good job of weeding out the unessential, the not necessary, the things or the people that were stealing my energy versus giving me the energy. I have designed this plate so beautifully that there isn't a day that I wake up that I'm not looking forward to it. And that's, I think, something to celebrate. But that wouldn't have happened if I was waiting for somebody else to give me permission to do that. And it takes a lot of reinforcing. And so when I start to feel off or off balance or off kilter, I think I look at my plate, my not literal, but figurative plate and say, what's on my plate right now? And where is this out of balance? And how can I shift some things around? And oftentimes the minute I do that, I feel better.
You know, we started this episode saying it could have been 26, 56 episodes. And just in that last rebuttal of Anniston's, I think that there's at least 10 episodes. People are going to be saying, wow, what's on my plate? So let's bring awareness in. What's on my plate? And what are the things that make me feel like, oh, I really don't want to do this? So many people, they wake up and they are not excited about living their life. They are dreading going to work, seeing their spouse or meeting that commitment or doing that thing. And what does life look like when everything on your plate is something that you're excited for? It reminds me of being a child and my food being separated and starting with the thing I didn't like. And I ate that first so I could make my way around to the thing I liked the most. And what if everything on your plate was something that you liked? How much more excited would you be? And that's what life can really be.
Well, I do want to preface though and say this, because there are some parts of, for instance, some things that I do in my job that I wouldn't say I love. I mean, I don't hate anything, but that aren't the things that light me up, right? But the majority of the things I do light me up. And I think that's the key, because it's unrealistic to think, for instance, that you're going to take a job and if you don't love every single thing that is part of your responsibility, that you need to get out of that job or it's not the right job for you. I think that it's the balance. And it's making sure that you prioritize your purpose. You prioritize the things, and your purpose is also the thing that lights you up in the moment. And so I wake up early. I make time for priming and meditation. I make time for reading, because reading really lights me up. In different seasons of the year, I make time for writing. By the time I start my job, my cup is so full of things that I love, like, and exercising and obviously spending time with the kids in the morning. And like, I've checked off so many of those boxes that it doesn't really matter. I'm not as fazed by the things that I don't, the tasks that I have to fulfill that I don't absolutely love, because why? Because I'm not looking to them to fulfill me up. If I hadn't taken the time to fill me up earlier, and I was instead looking at those things and saying, give me energy, fill me up, when they were never meant to give me energy in the first place, then I'm going to run on empty. And I'm going to finish the day feeling depleted and disgruntled and grumpy,
I have an example I want to bring in, because I think this will really help people that are in business. I have a client who has a large, successful business, and they have a lady, 26 years old, in accounting, and she tendered resignation. And they were so shocked and they were so disappointed. And they had shared with me previously, they think she's a shining star and they're just so excited that she's in the business and they love her and she's brilliant. And then she resigns. And then they called her in for a meeting and just said, why? Like, we just want to know, like, why? Is there something that we did? Is there something we could do? And in asking that question, without judgment, without shame, without anger, without finger pointing, she just sat there and said, I'm in accounting. This is what my degree's in, but I'm so unhappy doing this job. Like, I'm doing data entry and I want to do things that are going to be creative with the numbers. That's going to grow the business. That's going to save the company money. And so they said, what if we moved you into this function and you started there, same money, same everything, but just changed what you were doing? Would you stay? And she said, absolutely. I'm not leaving because I don't like the business. I'm not leaving because I don't like the people. I wake up every day and I'm like, I just don't want to sit and crunch the numbers and just every day do the same task again and again. It's like it was eating her soul. And now in checking back with them, she's thriving. And again, they've got this incredible person that they didn't want to lose, that they would have lost. And it always makes me think of how many people have left jobs, have left marriages, have left things because they're doing something that's on their plate that they don't enjoy. And they either don't have the courage to speak up or they don't think that it's possible for them. And those are the two things that really hold people back from being able to do it. But if you're a leader of an organization, I almost challenge you to say you should be having that conversation before your people come to you, before you see a dip in performance, before you see a drop in revenue, before a resignation. Just start saying to people, man, what lights you up? What turns you on in this job? What do you want to do more of? And if I could support you in that, where does that come from? There's a lady in the same company that I'm working with. She loves cooking. And on Fridays, she does cooking lessons. They've got a cafeteria and she just does it. And if it's 2 people that show up, if it's 10 people, and it's becoming fun. But she looks forward to Fridays every day because on Fridays she gets to shine. And you can do that in every environment, every way, but it's your responsibility to be able to do it. What is the one thing that you think is going to support people the most in taking the information that we've given them and move them forward?
Well, before we answer that question, I just have one thing I want to say on your story that you just shared, because it's such an important point. Whether you are a leader of one or you are a leader of many, it is so important that you start to observe your team and start to look for those things that they naturally tend, will raise their hand and say, hey, I can do this, or I don't mind doing this, and start to allow them to be seen. Have those conversations, because I think people can start in a company in a specific role and they'll be hired for a specific role most often than not based on their resume. But once you have someone in your culture and you can start to see how they work, how they interact, and if you start to ask them questions like, what do you enjoy doing outside of work? And then there might be a project that comes up. For instance, we have someone within our organization who has a knack for creating videos. He's a really great videographer and he's really good at editing. That has nothing to do with his job function. But now, whenever we have a video project that maybe we have a tight turnaround on, or we need something that's really special, we'll go to him and say, hey, would you mind helping us with this project? And he always raises his hand, and what he produces is so good. It's so genius. Again, this has nothing to do with what he was hired for, but I guarantee you, if we ever decide to expand our video department or open a video production company, we know the first person we're going to call, right? So you need to be looking for that in your people, looking for what they're naturally gravitating towards, and allow that to inform their career progression within your company. And then to answer your final question of what can people do now to really take this and run with it. Again, I think it starts with you. And I know we're talking about business. We're talking about bringing spiritual practices into business. But if you yourself are not identifying those things within you that make you special, that make you unique and authentically you, then it'll be very hard for you to see that in other people. So my challenge to you would be to start asking yourself, what do I do that lights me up? And if your answer is no, it's what could I do that would light me up?
Oh, so good. So good. Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. We hope that this has been a thought-provoking episode, a thought-provoking series, and that you've gained tremendous value in not only your personal life, and in your professional life. People always ask me, why do I coach inside of business? And my answer is always because that's where the majority of people spend the majority of their time. And if I can support people to be happier at work, they're going to be happy in every other area of their life. Your life is yours, and it is whatever you choose to make it. And I hope that you take some of the information that we've shared throughout this series and begin to apply it into your life, apply it into your business, apply it into your home. And again, you become the catalyst for the change in the life around you. I always say it is your responsibility to create the greatest impact every time you walk into a room. My mom taught me as a child that every time I leave a room, I must turn around and look back. Did I leave anything in the room? Did I leave my shoes in the room? Did I leave something at somebody's house? Did I pack everything up? Did I leave it better than I found it? And I've taken that principle and applied it into every single area of my life. And I just implore you that when you walk out of a room, that could be in your home, that could be at work, that could be in a grocery store, are you leaving that place better than you found it? Rudi and Anniston, Rick Steens, we love you so much. And thank you so much for listening to the Empowered Life podcast. I'm going to ask you one more time, please rate, review, and subscribe to our series. You can watch us on YouTube and you can listen to this on any platform. Share it with anyone that you think this message is going to resonate with. Help us share and spread our message. People really undervalue the power that they have in a single action of rating and reviewing. The more reviews we get, the more ratings we get, honest feedback we get, the more it actually boosts us in the algorithm for people to find our content. And if you're going to share it with somebody that's going to learn something from it, think of the benefit in the relationships they're going to have when you now have two people sharing the same style of communicating.